Hello, everyone. My name is Val. Welcome to the Usercentrics webinar. We are calling it SEO 2.0, just to avoid any confrontation with people that are coming up with new acronyms like GEO and IO and whatever. We might end up having a new acronym after this webinar, I hope. Feel free to use the chat to share your preferred one. But yeah, for today, we will talk about how the LLMs and the new chat interfaces and the new change in the way people consume content and search for brands are changing the way we do SEO mostly. And I have with me, let me just get the next slide. I have with me a panel of speakers. So my name is João, as I already said. I'm the VP Dimension for Usercentrics, so I lead the teams that are responsible for generating mostly traffic acquisition and new ARR. I also have Jake here. He's the co-founder of Scale, which is a specialized agency on everything SEO and works very closely with us on these matters. And Colette will try to join because she is having some technical issues. But while she's trying to join, I'll cover for that for her. And she's the VP brand and comms. And at the moment, we are doing some shifts internally on the way we manage SEO and brand, as you'll see in some slides. So it's really important to have her here as well. Before we start, just some housekeeping rules. So feel free to drop any questions. There's a specific panel. If you never used Livestorm before, there's a specific panel for questions. You can click and add your questions, and at the end, we will answer them. You can also upvote them, so we have a sort of priority and ranking. Feel free also to comment and introduce yourself in the chat. We were actually, I saw a lot of people messaging and saying hello, so feel free to continue some parallel conversation. We will record this webinar and we will make it available for everyone that attended live and the ones that were not able to attend. And we'll also share the slides. And then obviously feel free to share any feedback, to connect with us on LinkedIn. It's always super cool to have your feedback to see how we can improve things and move things forward. So starting from the very beginning, we have been, I think, in the last, I would say, 2 years in this state of trying to deal, and especially we as marketers, because I have a lot of empathy for everyone in the room, we have been in this sort of turmoil of how do we adapt for the future, how do we make sure that we are future-proof for what to come with all the advancements in terms of technology. And this is always like that for the last, I don't know, decades. So we are always in these sort of challenging times. And that's why we decided to, okay, maybe let's create a sort of space and webinar where we can share how we view things, what we are doing, and how we can help the ecosystem. And that's sort of the main goal for the webinar today. I think I don't need to tell you that things are changing. I think all of us are part of the change in one way or another. But I think one of the fundamental changes is that the way people consume content, the way people discover brands is shifting from, just typing a few queries and getting access to a few links and websites to a more conversational UI, to a more extended conversation with potentially a generative AI system, LLMs that are basically crawling multiple data sources from Reddit to YouTube to Wikipedia and so on. And obviously this creates fundamental changes for us as a brand, for us brands, and we need to sort of prepare for it. And that's kind of the main goal for today, is to try to give you some concrete tips and tricks. We'll share again some of the things we are doing, and then Jake will cover some specific tips and tricks that you can do so you can make sure that your brand is well positioned for the future. And this is quite exciting, frankly, because this reminds the early days of SEO, right? So we are still trying to figure out things, trying to understand how things work. And I think if we do this together and if we share our knowledge and so on, I think we'll do this much faster. And I think, again, if we can be early movers here, I think will be great for our brands. we were actually discussing between ourselves when we were preparing these slides how the SEO in 2020, 2030 might look like. And actually, we started by how the SEO in 2035 might look like. Then we moved to 2030. I think as of now should be 2026 or 2027, because things are changing so fast and so quickly that it's kind of hard to tell you, okay, this is going to change next month or next year or in 5 years. But I think what we already see as emerging signals is that the AI search engines are on the rise, right? We have ChatGPT with a huge adoption, actually one of the digital products with the highest adoption ever. We have Perplexity as well. We have even the Google search changing the way it shares the answers with the users, moving from, again, just links and websites to the AI overviews, digesting content, conversational follow-up. So this is one. And we also see a rise in video search engines. And this is especially tied with the way the new generations search and research. And we have some data points around that. But in short, basically, especially Gen Z and millennials, there's an affinity to search not only on Google or now on ChatGPT and so on, but also on YouTube, TikTok, even Instagram. And this is also something that we should look at and not overlook and just think of Google as the traditional SEO main platform. So that's, I think, something that we should take into consideration when we are thinking, okay, how does the future look like, and what are some of the building blocks that we need to consider moving forward. So this is basically what I was just sharing about the generations, and that's something that we need to take into account. So sort of the search engines are in sort of decline, especially on the Gen Z preferred option to engage and search for brands. As opposed to social media, where there's a clear rise. So this is something we should be aware. Obviously, we should always do this research and take into consideration these data points as long as they fit and make sense for our brands, our ICPs, or even the personas that are part of our ICPs, the companies that we target might not be part of the Gen Z, but at some point, millennials, Gen Z, etc., they will overtake in terms of decision making. So it's very important for us to start as early as possible and not overlook the power of social media and organic presence there. So yeah, so fundamentally, there's sort of a change in the way we should do things because of the new way people engage with brands and consume content and discover brands. We are sort of shifting away from just thinking clicks, keywords, or even topics to a new way where we think, how is my brand represented in the day-to-day conversations that people are having with these systems? Is my brand being mentioned enough times? Am I working with authoritative? Am I working with partners, with the community, and so on, to make sure that I'm present and I'm active in all the data sources where these LLMs are basically crawling and getting all the information to train the models and come up with answers. So we need to start doing all these shifts while we still care about the fundamentals of SEO, which is obviously to build authority, to build great content, to think about schema markup, all this technical SEO content. Even the link building is still important and is still foundational and basic, but we will need to think one next layer, which is this one on the conversational interfaces, and how this new change in the UI also demands our brands to adapt. So is the legacy SEO dying? The answer is not really. So yes, in a way, but no in the other. As I just mentioned, the SEO basics are still quite fundamental, and they need to be there in order for you to be referred or even mentioned in some of these platforms. But you should not, again, overlook other things, as I was mentioning, like social media, like community, like PR, like brand. There are a few things here that probably was not so clear or so obvious for someone that was working in SEO, that now is becoming increasingly important, because all these together builds your brand footprint that then will be used by these systems. So let me just share before we go to Jake's tips and tricks, which I think is the most interesting part of this webinar. Let me just share 2, 3 data points on what we are seeing from our side and how we are basically using those data points to shape our strategy. So the first one that I wanted to share with you is our onboarding survey data. So actually the onboarding survey, I don't know if all of you use it, but if not, it's something that I really recommend you to do. So you should always, in terms of measurement and even attribution, it should always rely on different sources from, just basic UTMs, GA4, but also it's great to have some data from your users, and we use the onboarding survey to collect those inputs and to make informed decisions. And one of the interesting things that we notice in our onboarding survey in terms of trends is that in the last 6 months of 2024, we had the other option in when we were asking where do people hear about us, and 12% of the other responses mentioned AI search related, like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and so on. And that number jumped to 27% roughly in the first 2 months of 2025. So basically, we have been experiencing firsthand this rise of the adoption of LLMs, Gen AI, whatever you want to call it. And for us, this is, yeah, quite interesting to see. And I think the other interesting data point is that when we look and we are able to sort of track the activation rate of people coming from those sources, we see that the activation rate is quite high. So it's around 54%, which is more or less on par with sources like recommended by a friend, or even like I found you on search Google Ads, which typically is a high intent channel. So it's quite interesting for us to see that again this is picking up and the conversion rate is quite high as well. Then we decided, based on this, we decided, okay, why not making the AI a specific field? Because when we have a field just as others, people might not even bother to say that they hear from ChatGPT. So we decided to include to make it easier for people to choose AI platforms as an option. And when we did that in that same month, basically the AI platform share in terms of people hearing about us, basically was around 16.4% total. And this was mind blowing for us. It still is. Probably there's something wrong with the data. That's my first question whenever I see these type of numbers. But at the same time, even if there is any potential issue, I think the signal is there again. So there's a huge rise and huge adoption of these tools, and more we see the influence of this in the volume of signups that we have in our products. And just so you know, you can see here that the onboarding answer rate is around 61%, 62, so it's quite high. So frankly, again, it's something that we are taking seriously, and we are taking the measures to make sure that we are not left behind, and we continue to build on top of it. I just wanted to make a call out here, especially for brands that probably don't sell to a specific target audience, that are more or are often early adopters, which is our case. So you might not have this sort of adoption for your brand and product, and that might be because of your audience. So just take it with a pinch of salt. And then the other one that I also wanna point out is that despite the rapid growth, there's still a gap between the number of searches on Google and the number of searches that we see, or the interactions that we see and prompts on these platforms. This gap is closing quite fast. That's what we are seeing from our side. But at the same time, please don't go all in on, okay, I just care about ChatGPT, Perplexity, alike tools, and don't forget, again, the basics and Google. So that's just one important point. And the second important point, for the ones that don't know our brand, we are the owners of CookieBot, which is a leading content management platform for data privacy, and the product itself has a very strong market presence, especially because since the very beginning, we built on a very strong community, and we are constantly being featured across blogs, YouTube, forums, and so on. We also work with thousands of partners across the globe, and obviously this helps us elevate in terms of authority and so on. And then there's also an effect of since one of the things we sell is basically the cookie banners that you see on the website. There's more websites add our cookie banner, and they keep the powered by cookie bot. There's a sort of link building as well at play that helps. And these are some of the things that also help with us being featured on these platforms. So again, it's just to take with a pinch of salt that we are seeing this huge adoption when we look at the segmentation by channel. You might not see this in your brand. This is particularly for us, but again, I think the high level message is that this might happen for your brand as well, or might start to happen in the few months to come. So be ready. And now moving on to the just one last slide, and then I'll move on to the tips and tricks. One last thing that I wanted to tell is what are we doing differently now to try to tackle these new changes. And one of the strategic decisions that we made was to shift the SEO team and budgets from my team, Demand Gen, which is usually very focused on short-term delivery and things like iteration, optimization, experimentation, etc., to the brand org. So now this team sits with brand, which has a bit more longer term thinking mindset as opposed to our team. It's also closer to the content side of things. This is where we are creating content. This is where we need a lot of alignment with the multiple initiatives content-wise that are happening. This is also where we have community and PR initiatives, and this is critical again for dimensions and to make sure that our brand footprint is growing. And then basically we rely on Scale to support with the technical SEO, link building, and some of these parts. And when we look at metrics, we can't rely solely or anymore on traffic. We used to look just at traffic numbers, organic traffic numbers. It's quite difficult. Even now with the Google AI overviews, we see that almost 20% or more of the results are now basically served with Google AI overviews. So it's expected that there might be a drop in people clicking to go to websites. But we are trying to track the brand recall, the brand mentions, and shifting a bit away from clicks to impressions, which is sort of the game now. And the community part that I just mentioned is important on the brand mentions, because what we want to do is to make sure that we are present and we are creating the right conversations in the data sources, meaning Reddit, Quora, Wikipedia, social media, and so on. Especially Reddit is quite important both for Google AI overviews and for Reddit. And with that, I would like to hand over to Jake so he can tell you the tips and tricks and how do you survive and what can you do, technically speaking, to take advantage of this change.
Thank you very much, Zhao. So yeah, I'm gonna walk through some tips and tricks, as Zhao said. Basically, what can you guys do in the short term to start shifting towards this with everything that is happening, right? So first of all, I'd like to walk through this overview. As you can see on this slide, it's what we're calling search fragmentation. So what we're seeing as a result of two big factors is that the places where people are looking for information is fundamentally fragmenting, right? So historically, we think a lot of people would search in fewer locations, but due to AI and also Gen Z, this is causing what we're calling search fragmentation, right? So because of AI, there's now AI search engines, LLMs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. But AI is also creating a lack of trust. People don't know what is real and what is fake. Is this video made by AI? Is this content made by AI? And this lack of trust means that people are looking in more places and are looking more often, right? And Gen Z, as Jab pointed out earlier, they prefer social media over search engines. So the way in which people are looking for information, the customer journey is fundamentally changing. So we're kind of calling this search fragmentation. So this is kind of like the panorama. as you guys can see here. And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will answer any questions that you have and help you guys out. So this is kind of like the panorama that we're looking at. And then on the next slide, we can start kind of looking at what we call an AI search measurement framework, right? So before we start doing things, we need to be able to measure, are our actions actually leading to some type of result, right? Because if not, we're doing what I call spray and pray. We're doing kind of like a lot of random like actions, and we don't know if they're actually impacting what we want to achieve, right? So step number one is we need to define an AI search framework, a measurement framework together, put together KPIs, and then when we start doing things, which I'll go through in a second, we can basically measure, are these things actually having an impact on our bottom line in increasing pipeline, etc. Right? So this is basically an AI search framework, as you guys can see on the screen, that we've defined, and this is evolving over time, right? Because AI is changing every week, I think, as we know. So this is obviously evolving, right? And we split it into two main categories. One is lagging indicators, and one is leading indicators. And on the next few slides, I've got a few things on basically what you can do. But first, let me quickly give you a brief overview of what they look like. So the leading indicators, these are like the main differences, right? So in traditional SEO, we look at like rankings, clicks. That's basically it. In this new world, right, now we're starting to really pay much more attention to brand mentions and citations, because this helps us appear in different LLMs. So this is becoming in greater importance, right? So with a lot of brands that we're working with at scale, as we do link building, we're also getting brand mentions at the same time, right? So we're trying to hit two birds with one stone through our outreach efforts. So this is one thing that we need to measure as brands, is how many citations are we getting? How many do we have? Is it increasing over time? And I'm basically seeing this on a graph. I'm making this a KPI. The second one is basically looking at impressions and branded search. So one thing John mentioned is that because of AI overviews, people are clicking less, right? And this is a very big trend in marketing, the zero-click marketing, right? So a lot of people are staying in channel and they're clicking a lot less, you know, whether it's on search engines, LLMs, social media platforms. So this is a big trend in marketing in general. And this basically changes the attribution game, right? Because if less people are clicking, you cannot rely on software attribution as you could previously, which again, I'll cover in a second. So this is one shift happening. And because of there are less clicks, people come back through more branded search. So you may have seen in Search Console, more people looking for your brand, homepage traffic is on the rise. So this customer journey is fundamentally shifting, which means how we measure has to shift as well. And the other one is basically we can measure clicks from AI search engines, which I'll go through in a second. So these are like the leading indicators. And then on the lagging ones, we have software attribution, which we all use and we all know, whether it's HubSpot, measuring in our HubSpot CRM or in Google Analytics, and then self-attribution reporting I'll go through in a second. So on the next slide, what you'll see is AI search rank tracking, right? So what we recommend is to basically start tracking a handful of keywords that really matter to your brand, as we call category keywords, bottom of the funnel keywords. So for example, cookie software or cookie banner software, anything to do with your brand, right? Measure these in a tool. I've added a name of a tool. There's like many tools out there which do this. There's lots like coming out like every single week. Step one is to measure where are you in the rankings and track your rankings, just as we did in traditional SEO, where we start doing in AI search, in LLMs. So you're able to track your rankings, you're able to see your competitors, and you can see like, are you increasing or decreasing? Where are you appearing, right? So this is like step number one, track your rankings. And then step number two is to build this channel grouping, right? Just got a question, and this is the answer on the screen, right? So basically, what you can do in Google Analytics is, if you see on this slide, it says there's a regular expression that you can add very easily into Google Analytics. This is like a really quick thing. So you can measure how much traffic are you getting from these different LLMs, AI search engines. You can build a custom channel grouping, or if you use Looker Studio, for example, you can add in like a filter with this regular expression, and you can start seeing how much traffic is coming from these different LLMs. and you can start tracking this. And one thing to take into account is basically, if your traffic from Search Console is decreasing, are you seeing a shift to AI search, right? Maybe you're not losing the traffic, maybe the traffic is coming back through somewhere else. So that's an important comparison that you can do as well if you're seeing a decrease in Search Console. Nice. Okay. Next up, we have self-attribution reporting, which I have an example on the next slide. But basically, if you look at the image on the right, can you go back one sec, please, Joe? Thank you. So if you look on the image on the right, you can see it says original source drill down to Google, right? So software attribution would basically say the leads, the pipeline came from Google. So we all think it's Google, but we don't actually know where it came from. If you look on the left, there's a little thing which says, how did you hear about us? And John mentioned this as well. And someone typed in perplexity.ai, right? So we actually know they didn't actually come from Google. Maybe they typed in the brand in Google, but where they actually saw the brand originally was in Perplexity. They were doing research, and probably they went through many different channels. But afterwards, they typed the brand. Well, in this case, it was Scale. They found Scale in Perplexity. Maybe they were looking for like SaaS SEO agencies or similar. Then they typed our brand into Google. They came through Google. Then they booked a call. But then HubSpot is saying Google, but we actually know it's from Perplexity, right? So this is a really important shift, because due to zero clicks, the zero click paradigm shift, that means that you have to start adding this field onto your demo form, right? So on the next slide, there's an example of our website. And you can see it here, right? So we added, how did you hear about us? We made it mandatory, and we suggest that every brand does this. And some things we hear is that if we add this field, we will get less form submissions, right? Because we think the more fields we add, the lower the conversion rate. However, we've been A/B testing this with many different brands. We've seen no conversion rate drop. So definitely add this to your form like ASAP, and really find out where people are hearing about you from, right? Is it from Perplexity? Is it YouTube? Did they see you at a conference? Like, where did they hear about you from? And then in order to quantify this, right, you can really easily download the answers every month, put it into ChatGPT. It can quantify it for you, put it into buckets, and you can kind of get some statistics on where did people hear about you from. And I actually think it's better to leave it as a free form field. So instead of having a drop down, I actually recommend just keeping it like this. Use AI to then quantify the results, because maybe you're missing things that are not in the drop down. It might give you ideas for your marketing strategy, right? So this is like a really big shift we are seeing in terms of attribution for sure. Thank you. So here's some other tips, right? So now we have like our measurement framework in place. Step one is put a measurement framework in place, as I shared. Step two is to start doing things, right? So this is a quick win. It may sound pretty obvious, right? But a lot of people aren't doing this. So LLMs love fresh content. Like I said, it sounds obvious, but what we are seeing is a lot of brands, like if you open your blog right now and find an article, look at the data on the article. One mistake a lot of brands make is that it says published date. Maybe you published it 3 years ago, but you updated it yesterday. You don't want to show the published date. You want to show when was it last updated, and you also want to update it regularly, because LLMs love fresh content, and also people want to read fresh content, right? In the world where there's a lack of trust and people not knowing what's real and what isn't, this is like really important to show that you're updating your content regularly. As I've added here, you're adding in, for example, first-hand experiences, unique insights. Like, this is really important, right? So you can't regurgitate content from Google or just use ChatGPT to create some content. You have to make really good content, and it has to be updated regularly. This is basically what LLMs want to see. It does require more work, but that's basically what's happening now, right? Fresh content. The other tip is how you structure your website, right? So a lot of people may argue this is like the SEO basics, which is basically true. But again, this puts a lot more importance on how we're structuring our content, both technically and in the content itself, right? So here are a list of things that you can already start doing in your content. One thing we're doing at Scale is we're doing basically like an LLM content audit or like analysis to go through a lot of content to see, does it have these things? Because what we've seen, what we were able to do and analyze in these in these LLM tracking tools, is it basically, you can see the competitors that are ranking, and you can also see the source links, right, of where are the LLMs picking up the different information. And you can look at the source links because you want to become a source link, right? Basically, when we analyze these source links and we find the commonalities and the patterns of what do these source links have that maybe our content does not have. Is it the freshness, or is it these things that I'm showing in the slide, right? So these are some really simple things. I'm going to read them out. I know you guys can read, but for example, adding a TLDR summary section. So this is all about chunk extraction. I think it was on a previous slide, but basically the way in which LMs work, right, is they read your content in chunks. It saves it in different chunks, or let's call them paragraphs to simplify it, or sections of your content, and then it retrieves it and then it analyzes it, synthesizes the data, and gives a result. So adding in these really concise summary sections is really important. So you can double check, are you adding TLDRs? Like, this is a really quick win that you can do straight away. Another thing is FAQ blocks. So adding FAQ questions at the bottom. So another trend is voice search. The way in which people search is changing. I think the number of characters people add in search is way longer than in Google, or people using the voice mode in ChatGPT, etc. So adding in more conversational content, FAQs is super important. I'm going to skip a few things because they're on the screen. Let me see what else is interesting on here. So another thing is internal links. So I think not as many people put enough importance to internal links. A lot of people create content, they publish the content, and they think it's done, right? But one thing missing in a lot of content workflows is actually adding internal links. And this is not just helping users navigate Google to crawl, but it's also helping the LLMs find interesting content as well, and creating what we call semantic relationships between different types of content. And then, like I said previously, adding the publish date, etc. Thank you. Here's another tip. So we've done a lot of analysis, and what we've seen is that LMs do pick up listicles for the BOFU keywords, right? So if you want to appear for software keywords in LLMs, it is scraping a lot of listicles. So there's a few things that you can do, and what we've been doing as well at Scale is basically building listicles on our own website, and also doing outreach to listicles on other websites. And another tactic is also creating listicles and publishing them on other websites, right? So there's three things you can do, like own listicles, I guess you could call it, and then I guess getting into other people's listicles. And again, you can analyze the source links from LLMs. You can basically do an analysis of what types of content are LLMs citing, and then you can build a strategy around that. What percentage of the source links are listicles? Can you build a campaign around outreaching to these? Can you create your own? What percentage are tofu pieces? What are the most common frequency of domains which LLMs keep pulling information from? How can you build a strategy around doing outreach or PR to that domain, right? So there's so much you can do, but it starts with getting those source links. So listicles are a very, very big thing. So I definitely recommend putting together a strategy for this. Let's see what's next. So this is another interesting concept, and it relates to EEATT, a very big concept in SEO. And what we're seeing is that authors are they're playing a bigger role in SEO. And I would like to explain the reason behind why, right? So I've added here authors equals trust. So in a world where people trust things less because we don't know what is real and what is fake, people are going to trust people, basically, right? So what we see at Scale is a lot of people, is a lot of brands, they have articles on their blog. So check out your blog right now. Who is the author of these articles? And are they an expert in their field? So you can't, for example, add brand team or publisher or editor or maybe you're working with a freelance writer who's not an expert and put their name. That doesn't work anymore. What's working today is adding experts as authors, or at least saying that they checked the article. And then basically what you're able to do is add author schema to these articles. The LLMs and Google is picking this up, they're understanding it. Users are trusting it more, they're engaging more. And this means that you're appearing in LLMs, and also you will increase your rankings in traditional search in Google. And to take this further, what you can do is when you've done your source link analysis from LLMs and you know the most common publications, the goal then is the same authors on your website, you want these same authors to appear on these publications too. So you're basically building an author ecosystem where you're creating these relationships between authors and people, so that you can increase basically your rankings and visibility in LLMs. So this is really important. Not enough people are talking about this or doing this, but like I said, in a world where people don't know what's real or who to trust, people will trust people. So basically, this is a very interesting concept. Next one, please, Joe. Thank you. And this, I think, is my last slide. This is just like a very general cheat sheet. I've been trying to give you guys very practical things that you can do right now. There's many more things in the world of LLMs and AI. There's so many things, but these are some quick things that you can quickly check today to start getting some ground. So each LLM basically puts weight on different things. So for example, ChatGPT wants to see that you're mentioned in a lot of interesting domains. That's why it's important to really invest in brand mentions. This is why when we do link building at scale, we're also getting brand mentions at the same time to increase our brand mention footprint, right? Or ChatGPT, for example, they want a conversational term. Why? Because that's how people are searching and interacting with LLMs. They're typing in conversational searches, asking questions. The searches are way longer than they are on Google. They're using voice search a lot more as well. What else? For example, Perplexity wants to see fresh content, right? So for example, not having published date, but at the updated date. Making sure your content is updated at least every 3 months. So maybe you go on your website today and you have content updated from 2 years ago. That's not going to work, right? You have to bake in a quarterly content update where you're updating the facts, you're adding in extra information, because people want to see this, and also the LLMs want to see this as well. And there's way more other tips on this slide, like take a screenshot or get the recording afterwards. For example, DeepSeek, they want to see technical SEO, schema, the pages load fast because LLMs want to crawl your website fast. Here's some quick things that you can do basically to appear in these LLMs. And that's what I have on the quick tips. And I think we have some questions. Yeah, we have some time for questions at the end. So looking forward to the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, we are almost at the end, and I see some questions and a lot of messages on Slack. So very good to see the engagement. We will be able to answer those in 2 minutes or so. So just to wrap things up. So again, SEO is evolving, is not dying. And I think we tend to move into this sort of position and approach of everything is dying as a new world. Legacy is no longer relevant. But I think what we heard today is that the basics and the foundations are still quite important and might be overlooked. As Jake was mentioning, having fresh content, the right schema, the structure, even the brand citations with the link building efforts, all of these things still matter a lot. Having the website optimized, page loading, speed, etc., just basic stuff. But we need to evolve and go to the next step, which is sort of what we kind of went through today, and how we can adapt for the future and to leverage these sort of early days of this new revolution, which is sort of the next revolution post mobile, as some tech leaders say. So it's great to navigate, and again, let's prepare for 2030 or 2026. I think we might need to correct this, or maybe 2025 Q4. Let's see. But yeah, let's prepare for the next chapter here with SEO. And now I think we can look at this chart and the questions and try to answer them. I also see that in the meantime, Colette joined, so Colette, feel free to also unmute yourself and answer any question. So yeah, let's go. I'm just opening the questions. Okay, I will start with the one with the top votes. I see that Colette already answered, but I will just read it. So Barry was asking if we have industry-wide data that shows that Gen Z prefers social search over search engines. Colette, do you wanna answer? Or should I just read what you wrote? If you're still there. Maybe not. So basically, also to share some data, Barry, we did a trust report with a few partners and thousands of users from different generations. And actually, in this report, almost 40% of Gen Z they said that they trust social media platforms with their data, and that social search is their preferred channel. So there's a sort of a relationship with this generation, and it feels natural for them to search there. So I think that sort of answers the question, I hope. Then there's a question from Nicholas. How do you track ranking in AI search engine? I think, Jake, you cover a bit, but you want to just voice over a bit more on this?
Yeah, I mean, there's some tools which do this, but it's kind of tricky in the sense that each LLM is different. It changes every single time you search because it's personalizing the results, right? Depending on how you're interacting with the LLM previously, it will personalize it based on what it knows about you. And this is one thing I actually didn't mention, but what we're seeing is that when you're creating content, you really have to think about who is your ideal customer profile and really center it around that, because that means that content is more likely to appear for that ICP who's searching in the LLM because it's personalizing the content, right? But how to track it, there's many tools which do this. I think Ahrefs launched one very recently. There's one called Autoly. There's like so many which do this. I know some people are just doing it manually. You know, they're using, for example, ChatGPT without being logged in, doing a search, recording in a spreadsheet, so you can do it manually as well. But the thing to think about is that every searcher kind of gets a different result. So it's kind of tricky in that aspect. So that's why it's important to create content with your ICP in mind and making super personalized, right? Because we're going into there's like another trend, which is hyper personalization, which is happening. So that's something else to kind of keep in, to take into account as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think there's a fresh question from Anna. Thanks for asking. She's asking how much of this also applied to non-profit marketing. SEO is very key for non-profit organizations. Yes, you are absolutely right. I think it applies everything that we just shared. It completely applies. I think what you need to think, and what I would do if I was in your seat and role, is to think, how can I, in terms of content creation, I don't know what exactly your nonprofit organization do, but how can you work with your community? Because I'm sure you have a huge community around your purpose or the impact that you are bringing to society, or your mission. And probably you can work with partners and again, your community and so on, to have a sort of partner content loop, so they can create content together with you and bring some experts, as Jake was mentioned. Having authors trust fresh content is really critical. So why not looking into potential experts, people that are supporting your nonprofit organization, or even these partners that can contribute and help you create content both on your owned media, but also on their platforms, either YouTube with video, or TikTok, or X, whatever, wherever it is, or Reddit. So that's something I would really recommend. And as you do this, and over time it compounds, and then the LLMs pick this up and start referring your brand or mentioning your brand when someone searches for it. Okay, let me just look at the chat just to see if there is any other big question. And there was one around the nonprofit. Okay. Do we know if we have any other question? Jakob, I think you are also supporting. I'm reading through the chat, but I don't see anything.
I mean, the only question is, will people get the recording? And I think it will be sent straight after the webinar, right? So definitely, you'll get the recording. You can share it with your teams, and they can watch it. And yeah, please share it. Please share the recording afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a final question for you, I think, Jake, about Scale. Do you only work with SaaS business?
We work with tech brands, mainly like B2B brands. So if you're a B2B brand, then reach out and we can see if we're a good fit. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot of content on our website too. So like check out our website, like scalewithak.so, and we have a lot of content on there for free that you can check out as well if you want more help in like SEO and GEO or SEO 2.0 and these things. So yeah, but yeah, tech brands.
Yeah, very good. There was a comment about the slides. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to make it full screen for some reason. Didn't work, so it seems like I was sharing from a mobile device. But anyway, I think you got the message. And again, we will share the slides afterwards, so you should be able to look in depth, especially to there were a few sheets and things that I think will be quite useful. So, okay, I think we can wrap up today. Thanks everyone for joining, and it was great to see the level of engagement and question. Obviously, this is a very hot topic. We are all trying to figure out how to navigate change and the evolution of SEO. But hopefully this was helpful for you. It was definitely helpful for us. So yeah, let's keep in touch. Feel free to connect with me, Jake, even Colette on LinkedIn, and let's keep in touch and let's keep these conversations open. And see you around.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.